Right into it today because we are joined back by everyone's favorite, the one and only. I can't even talk today, Psychic Leota. Like
Hello.
you've already got me excited before we even start today.
I'm always excited to come on the podcast. It's awesome.
Well, we're both drinking coffee. It's in the
Hmm.
afternoon here on the East Coast. Well, listen, before we start, I just want to say so many people have been getting readings. Everybody who still wants one, we are still offering $20. Use code VELVET. You get 35 minutes for $20 with code VELVET at Psychic Source. And again, that does not need to be used on one full reading. You do not have to go to Psychic Leota. All the psychics are good. Someone just told me they just went to Psychic Pandora. I know someone that went to Psychic Annalise. So people are really loving all the different psychics. And if you are having a bad reading after like 3 minutes and you're just not feeling it and you're not bonding or just jiving, you can stop it and you can bank, you can let it go on, but your 35 minutes, if you did 5 minutes, you still have 30 minutes left. So don't be afraid to just speak up. But a lot of people have been telling me, lots of people are getting career readings lately, everyone that's DMing me. It seems to
Yeah,
be.
it's the new year, and I love
Mhm.
it. I'm connecting with a lot of people that come through the podcast, and I think I said it last time too, but your community of listeners, they're just very intuitive, very insightful, very intelligent. I mean, I appreciate all my callers, but we've been having a real good time from the podcast. So, and I would say too, if you're having, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming with so many options provided by Psychic Source. Go to the website. On the sidebar, there's actually a little search feature where you can type in exactly what it is that you're looking for, and they'll narrow the psychics down for you. So that is super helpful.
What happens if someone wants to hear from someone who has passed? Like, how does that work? Like,
Hmm.
and then someone else might come through, right? But I said that's just kind of how it works. I mean, you know more than me, but someone asked
There's
me.
some there's very, very highly trained mediums on the site. I have not specifically been trained in mediumship, so it's confusing sometimes because if I hear something or I feel something, I say it, and I we've been freaked out together when that happens in my readings, but in a good way. So what I always say is if you're comfortable with me and you want me to try, I will. But there are psychics on the site that are extremely advanced, highly trained mediums, and you can search for those specifically.
Wow, so that's great because one of our listeners asked, and Psychic Robin said the same thing. She said that this behind the Velvet Rope community, she said, is they keep you on your toes.
I love it. I love it.
Listen,
Yeah,
I
we've been
have
having a good time.
trained, they're all my children, and I have trained them well. So I like to hear that they are keeping everybody on their toes. So, okay, well, there's some things which are, I want to start with this one situation. There are these two women, and one of them is named Ariana Maddox, like Ariana and then Madix, and the other is Katie Maloney. Now, I want to start
Okay.
with them. I'll get into why I want to start with them. But what do you feel like we could take these one at a time? I mean, they are two people that are kind of tied together in some respect. But so we can take Ariana Maddox and Katie Maloney. I know you have your cards with
Interesting.
you separately or just together. Like, what do you see?
I mean, so if we start with Ariana, I'm actually seeing a genuine intention to make progress, to kind of expand as a person, expand professionally, trying to look towards the future in a positive way. However, I do see a lot of like clashing of ambitions, specifically rivalry, and not really being able to connect fully with the people around her. And so I'm seeing a lot of miscommunication. I'm feeling like between the two of them specifically, seeing like a lot of selfish behavior, probably on both sides, but it is coming up with this person specifically. Um, Seeing a lot of like Spirit is kind of calling her out for maybe taking some things for granted or losing touch a little bit, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. And but I just want to say, like, guys, these are not, there's no cheat sheet that Psychic Leota and Psychic Robin, you have no idea what we are going to talk about when we come on here. So just look, I mean, and it's Marianne from your company who made me, I think I said this when I was with Robin. She explained to me that a third of people believe in psychics and a third just don't. And there's a third that's in the middle. So I feel we are speaking to the people kind of in the middle that that's a really accurate reading. And you didn't know we were going to talk about this person here today. Yeah, I mean, putting these two people aside, they were all on a show together. It was a total ensemble show, and some things happened, and Ariana kind of became bigger than the show, so to speak. She is kind of like, at the end of the day, a breakout star of the show, and she's had a lot of opportunities, not, whether they're deserved or not. Like, I'm not taking anything away from her, that's from the show, that a lot of others, not just Katie, that a lot of others haven't had. So I guess that's where you're kind of saying, like, maybe the not appreciating or taking some things for granted is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like someone who's extremely driven, and I do see her continuing to be successful, but it is at the expense of personal and professional relationships of people that it does feel like she's kind of stepping over a little bit, assuming that she's not going to need them in the future. And from what I can see, she may.
She may. Is there,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of he said, she said, or I should say she said, she said. There's a lot in the news. So these two own a business together. They own a sandwich shop. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
reports recently which say, Katie kind of was working at the sandwich shop while Ariana was off doing, famous people things, even though
Yeah.
Katie is famous herself, so there's a lot that are saying that Katie was resentful. And now a lot of other people are saying, well, actually, she was fine. She loved running the shop. Now Ariana's slower in, these public things, and she's back in the shop, and she's
Hmm.
not happy with that either. She's kind of butting heads. But then they come forward, Katie and Ariana, and say, this is all just fan fiction. We are the best of friends. So this really is a, like,
Hmm.
what vibe are you getting? Like, is this, sometimes when people say we're best friends and it's all fine, it's really not, because these people are
Hmm.
experts in the public eye. Or is it really fine and this is just a made up rumor that there's trouble in paradise between these two? Like, what do you say?
I would say I think that there is resentment here. I don't think that it's as explosive or confrontational probably as it's being made out to be, but it definitely feels like, and Katie was the one, I see a lot about her not leaving her comfort zone and wanting to. So kind of feeling like she needs to stay. And honestly, I feel like she kind of likes that though. I do see her being a bit resistant to change. She likes to focus on something. She likes to make it as successful as possible. And I do think that she likes to be the leader. Um, I think she can cooperate with others, and I think she is cooperating with, I'm terrible with names. I'm so sorry. It just popped out of my head.
Ariana.
Ariana. But at the same time, it does feel like there's a little bit of resentment. And I think that happens in friendships and relationships all the time, where you're like, okay, technically this person isn't breaking the rules, but I could have really needed them. I could have really used them here today, and they weren't because they were doing something in their own interest and nobody else's.
Do you see this? Like, look, sometimes, they say don't travel with people, don't live with people, don't get into business with them. Like, do you think this will last, this business relationship?
I think it will. I think that there's going to probably be more of a silent partnership over time. The truth of the matter is, I think both of these women are actually very business savvy. And I think they're smart enough to know that there's money to be made. And so I think they're going to figure it out. But is there tension? Oh, yeah, definitely.
What do you see for Ariana? Because you mentioned that I forgot what you just said about she's sacrificing maybe friendships and relationships. Like, she is in a relationship,
Hmm.
which it's not new, but it's not new. I guess you can say it's around a year old-ish.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, they're getting to the place. I always say, like, during the first 60 days of a relationship, you're dealing with somebody's PR person. And then after the first year, you really know, kind of where the energy is headed and who you've got on your hands. Um, I actually do see a pretty good balance between the two of them, but it feels like, again, I think she's prioritizing her own ambitions. And I think the ego is in the driver's seat a little bit more often than it needs to be. And I do feel like before the end of 2025, I think she is going to have a rude awakening. But at the same time, I don't dislike her. I actually think that she is a very good person. And I think the universe is going to give her a little nudge to get her back on track so that she's not burning the bridges. that she's starting to. But this relationship, I think it's going to hold up. It does feel a little aimless right now, though.
Interesting. They live on different coasts. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah. Are they going to do long term? Well, you didn't ask me that question, but I'm nosy, so I'm going to look.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, I would give it maybe another year or so. I don't feel like they're going to get married or do anything long term.
This is not her long-term person.
No, I don't think so. I like him though. I'm actually seeing a lot of like emotional maturity, tolerance, kindness. It feels like he has a big difference between his public persona and his personal personality, but I actually like him as a person.
That's good. And he really is very less in the public eye than her. So, so that kind of tracks that type of reading from what we know about him as well.
Hmm.
What about this is less of a person, but there is a rumor that this week there's going to be a big announcement in the Bravo world. Now, this is not coming from Bravo, so there could be nothing. There could be no announcement. People have a different term of the word big, but do you see anything for like the Bravo network? Because there's rumors which are not put out by them that something big is going to be announced this week in the Bravo world.
Let's see, is it going to be this week?
Yeah, and that's
If
the
you
other
hadn't
thing.
given me, yeah, if you hadn't given me a timeline, I would say probably within the next 4 weeks would be the bubble. But sure, it's likely that it would happen within the next week, 10 days, something like that. But I do think there is going to be a big shift. And I'm actually seeing releasing unnecessary baggage that, at least from their perspective, they feel maybe holding the network back or holding some of these shows back. And I'm also seeing introducing this feels like reintroducing probably some participants as well as new, I want to say like a new show or something. Like this feels like it would be pretty big.
Do you so maybe like you said in the next 4 weeks, this baggage, like what in terms of there's a person that's holding the network back or like a show back, like a big
It's kind
name
of,
on the network that should be let go?
yeah, I think there's going to be one big one specifically that I think they may be dropping, but this feels like multiple. This kind of looks like when I read for an organization and they're doing a bit of uh, housekeeping and clearing out some of the unnecessary aspects. So I do think this is going to be multiple people, but specifically one. Is this a male or a female? I want to say this would be a female. Um, I don't think she's going to be blindsided. I think she knows what's going on. But I also see exploring listening to, I think, their fans and the people who have been following them. So I do think they're going to do some fan service with this announcement as well.
People will be happy.
I think it'll be mixed. I think they're going to soften the blow by giving the viewers something they've been wanting.
Do you get any sense, like, I don't know if this is too specific as far as this female, is she East Coast, West Coast? Like, can you hone in? Or
Let's
is that too
see.
detailed?
I mean, this feels, would this be West Coast? This feels a little bit more West Coast. Um, hmm. It's kind of throwing me for a loop because I do see a lot of water, like a large body of water. Um, but technically it's coming back West Coast when I just asked that question straight up.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Well, my mind is racing. A woman West Coast, I have ideas, but that's what about like a big announcement? You said something about a new show. You think that's possible that they could possibly announce a new show?
Yeah, I mean, this feels like something entirely new or such a huge change that it really gives an entire series like a facelift and revamping. It may even be something, I don't know if they would announce this because I don't know how things work, but it may also be a change in either production or director, like what's happening behind the scenes to change the way that they're approaching the show. But it actually does look like a very positive. I have a feeling that that aspect of it is going to be something that people are not real open to at first, but then once it's executed, they're going to be very happy with.
Interesting. Well, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, there's Andy Cohen. He runs the network. There's talk all the time about maybe whether it's his time for a new role. As far as changing like something existing, there's Real Housewives of New Jersey, which that could be just changed altogether. This we don't know what's going to happen with that particular franchise, and it is a big franchise that maybe they'll be rebooting it or there's big changes there. And as far as a new show, there still seems to be this rumor out there that the Real Housewives of Rhode Island, which is like they have like Beverly Hills and they have like different franchises that maybe they're going to announce a new Housewives franchise. So all of that does track specifically, especially if you're talking about an existing show. New Jersey's been off the air for a really long time. There might be some look, people like you
Mhm.
said. I mean, that tracks for that because people, no matter what they do, there's two main characters. One's Melissa, one's Teresa. She's
Mhm.
probably getting rid of one, and you're gonna make half the people thrilled, and the other half are gonna be angry. Isn't that always the case in life very often?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
believe that that is what is going to happen here too. So that's all very interesting. Let's speak about there's a woman whose name is Lisa Vanderpump.
Mhm.
Before I give you any specifics, what do you feel about this woman, Lisa Vanderpump? What are your cards telling you?
Let's see.
Okay.
I mean, immediately her energy is very strong. So let's look at the cards.
Yeah. Let's look at the
Let's see.
cards.
Oh, okay. I mean, I actually really like her energy. I do feel like I am seeing wisdom with age. It does feel like there is going to be new opportunities this year and potential to prosper. Um, I feel like she's very funny. I feel like she's very capable. I get the sense that when she's passionate about something, it feels like she will go toe to toe with someone. And I actually think that that has served her pretty well. Um, I do feel like she has made some enemies because I wouldn't describe her as manipulative, but I would describe her as calculating. And there's a lot of people who don't like that. Um, I'm seeing a lot about wilderness. I'm seeing a lot about animals. So does she do something with a show that's about animals?
Well, a couple of things. She's a restaurateur, but she does have a new restaurant called Wolf, which is,
Ah, okay.
and let me just say, she also, in addition to being a restaurateur, she's very into animal, like cruelty and rescuing animals. She has a place called Vanderpump Dogs in LA where she rescues dogs, and she's
Oh,
done a lot of work with Yulin overseas. So that could be what you're saying. Do you think
okay.
that's like going to be a business? Is this something going to happen in her business with animals, you think?
I think so. It feels like she is going to lean into that. It also feels like, I don't know if this is a lawsuit or a dispute, but it definitely feels like there's something else that's related to animals that I feel like is going to have, I guess, a resolution, but not a solution, is how I would describe this. It feels like um, the people involved with that, I think, are going to stay separate, but it does feel like she is going to be able to move forward. But I mean, I actually feel like, and I also see her like reclaiming a lot of her time. This feels like somebody who's not old, but is getting older. And so it feels like she's really reassessing where she wants to put her time and energy. So I do see her leaning into more, I would say, of the animal, the passion for animals and rescue. It also feels like she was offered. So I'm seeing two. So is she currently on one show? Because I feel like I'm seeing two.
Well, she is the producer slash makes appearances on two shows. And it's probably well, not probably, she is the producer on a third show, but appears on two shows. One is called Vanderpump Rules, one is called Vanderpump Villa, and then she produces another one, but it's really hands off called The Valley.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she steps back even more, and really streamlines what she's doing with the shows to focus more so on her business. I do see multiple streams of income, so I think she's going to be really successful with that. But I just keep seeing animals, animals, animals. So I think that's going to be a huge focus.
And what is this lawsuit? This is related to the animals or
I think there's conflict related to the animals. I feel like the lawsuit actually does have to do with money, because I'm seeing coins everywhere. Um,
Hmm.
I don't see that going to court. I feel like that's either going to be settled or it's going to be dropped. Um, Also, I'm not seeing malicious intent with her. So this feels more like a perspective thing. I will say this, I think she's very tuned into animal care, animal rights, animal support. When it comes to people, it does feel like she's become a bit disconnected. And so that feels like that has a direct link to why she's having some legal issues.
Interesting. Well, she has a lot of money, so maybe if there's no malicious intent, it's not on her part and someone's trying to get money out of her.
This feels like a misunderstanding, like two people who have very different perspectives, not necessarily
Oh.
that she's in the wrong, if that makes sense.
And how would you describe, because you said 2 seconds ago that you are getting a vibe of calculating but not manipulative. What is the difference,
Mhm.
in your opinion, between calculating and manipulative? Manipulative.
Whenever whenever I read someone and I see symbols of a manipulation, it is somebody who is intentionally um, gaslighting, lying, using tactics of manipulation to do underhanded things or to coerce people to do things that are, you know, knowingly unhealthy for them and in their best interest. When I see someone who's calculating, to me, that always is somebody who is strategic. They're not going to cross the line, but if there's a loophole, they are going to utilize that loophole. So, I think it's the difference between, you know, Slytherin and full on Voldemort. So calculating is in the Slytherin house. It's my nerdy explanation of that.
No, Lisa has been accused of all of the above from some people, and who knows, she is West Coast herself, so maybe she has something to do with this big announcement that's coming that you foresee is West Coast. Now I want to switch gears to a man. His name is Jeff Lewis. What
Okay,
what do you feel for this Jeff Lewis?
let's see. Oh, what a great energy. Very talented, very intelligent, big, big personality. Very funny. I'm getting a lot of wit, very charming. Now, I will say immediately what comes through as well, though, is that this is somebody who can be very stubborn. This is also somebody who may perceive has a lot of negative attribution bias, meaning if there is any kind of question of why the people across the room are whispering, he's going to assume that they're talking about him in a negative way. And so when people come at him, and I think there's background, um, I think he does actually have experiences to back that up where he has been betrayed. He has had people talking about him. He's had things happen to him that make him very, very sensitive to people, coming for him. Now, that being said, I think that sometimes he may shut down professional and personal relationships a bit too quickly because of those past experiences. So, but I think he just looks like very talented, very successful. I don't see that stopping anytime soon. But I do think that he's running into some issues because he's very hypersensitive to people trying to screw him over.
And do you see, I mean, that is an accurate reading. And then this is one of those, like we said before, right down the middle. Like, do you see him being guilty of any of that? Like, other than, his defenses in trying to protect himself, like you just described, do you see
Mhm.
Jeff as being the one that is manipulating and kind of he's the one that does this very practice to others?
Not to people. I would say what comes through is I think that he will play the game when it comes to producers and organizations and businesses, contracts and things like that all day long. And I don't think he has a problem doing that. But when it comes to individuals, I think that there has been, of course, times when he's been in the wrong, and Spirit is showing that he has been unintentionally, I think, manipulative or harsh. Um, but I don't think this doesn't strike me as somebody who intentionally misrepresents their feelings, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. What about, he has, like you said, there are, for whatever reason, he does have falling outs. We all do. I've had many falling outs with people in the public eye myself. There is
Mhm.
one woman in particular named Heather McDonald that he has fallen out with. Like, do you have any vibes on Heather? What are the cards saying? And is this for
Mm.
the best? Sometimes people fall out and it's for the best, and sometimes people really secretly wish that they never fell out and they were back in each other's lives.
I think this is a genuine falling out. When I connect with Heather, I am seeing duality, which is kind of like two-faced. And so this does feel like someone who I think is actually a pleasure to be around. This feels like somebody who's very charismatic, very funny, I think very intelligent. This also feels like somebody who is very attention seeking. And I'm seeing a lot of compartmentalization between, I guess, personal friendships and professional friendships, but she doesn't make that distinction with the people that she considers professional. And I think she does justify that when speaking negatively about them publicly. So, yeah, this does feel like someone that sometimes does have malicious intent knowingly to get attention.
And what do you mean by like personal and professional relationships?
It feels like I think that she has people that she considers personally like her friend, and they're on the inner ring and they're her circle. But then I think she has people who are professional acquaintances that she's very chummy with, and they assume that they're in her ring, but she doesn't let them know that she really doesn't consider them intimate friends. They're business. And I am seeing a symbol for a lamb for the slaughter. So that's not good. This is somebody that I would be very careful having a connection with.
And what does that symbol mean? I mean, I guess it's obvious, but I guess what maybe I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah. And I mean, especially because we're specifically talking about Jeff, that's the example that I keep seeing. It feels like they had. So these are two people that can exploit loopholes. Although I feel like when Jeff does it, it's legit. It's in writing. He's letting everybody know what's coming. So he can be very calculating. Again, the word of the day. But with her, it feels like she directly went against a verbal contract that they had because she knew it wasn't in writing. And I feel like she did basically throw him under the bus so that she could get more attention, more clout. So I think she sacrificed the friendship for what she perceived to be the improvement in her career. I do think that
Interesting.
backfired though, and is going to continue to backfire. I actually see it her suffering because of some of the confrontations and the issues that she's had with people.
I really have no horse in this race. Everyone thinks I'm way more invested than I am. People are gonna think I put you up to these answers because they think
No.
I don't like Heather. We've had our moments, but it's not like I'm some huge Jeff fan and not Heather. I feel like they both have some things going on. So
Yeah.
I did not foresee any of that. But there is
No.
a lot. It's one of these situations where there is a lot of debate. It runs deep. People are very team Heather or very team Jeff on
Hmm.
whatever. And I honestly don't even, it's so deep and there's earrings involved. And I truly don't even know really what the falling out was over. It's a whole story. People try to explain it to me. And after like 13 steps, I'm like, I'm not that interested in this. But they
I
are
can't
both in the
tell.
public eye.
Yeah, I can't tell exactly what it is, but my prediction would be that this falling out is at the core over um, him honoring a verbal contract and her taking advantage of that because it wasn't in writing. And it looks like it's connected to maybe a third party of who they work with or something like that. So that would be my prediction.
Yeah, there was some other woman named Krista Lamas. I don't know if she's like the crux of why they fell out. I think there's a lot of reasons. But this is for the best. These two are not coming back together, you don't sense anytime soon.
No, I mean, I think they're too similar in a lot of ways, but then their core ethics and motivations are starkly different. So I think it's for the best.
Interesting. And our final person to touch upon, there's a woman, Brandy Glanville.
Okay, let's see. Hmm. I think she has a lot of trouble. So this feels like someone who I think has a legitimate underlying imbalance of some kind, either mentally or emotionally. I think she has a lot of trouble with impulse control. So I am seeing issues with mental health. I'm also seeing issues with physical health. It does feel like a domino effect. And so it feels like she may have had some kind of procedure some time ago, like a while ago. And I do see her having continued health issues. I think the problem with her is that it feels very much like I'm seeing a victim mentality. And I think that's difficult when you have somebody who is impulsive and who can be the aggressor, but then they literally start having issues and they are genuinely, you know, the victim. So I think she's struggling, even though it's hard for her to ask for help. I think she's running out of resources to actually get help from the people around her.
That's a very accurate reading too. She is very much an aggressor, but very much doesn't necessarily play all of life's games well, and then does have a victim mentality, but is an aggressor, and she is going through real, true health issues now, which she seems to be running out of resources for help. There's a man named Terry Dubrow. Dr. Dubrow is helping her, but like, it's just, I don't think she's a I mean, I don't want to argue with the cards, but but I don't think she's like I don't think, you talk about Vanderpump and Jeff and like maybe calculating is the word of the day. I don't see a calculating person in Brandy. I just think that there are real, like you said, possibly psychological like issues, like for
Hmm.
real.
Yeah, it definitely feels like this is not someone who has malicious intent. Now, I will say this, it's the things that she struggles with may not be her fault, but they're still her responsibility. And I think it is right that people are holding her accountable for her behavior because she's not doing as much as she can to remedy that. And so I think a lot of people are distancing themselves. I mean, when I just kind of look for more details, I'm seeing physical violence, I'm seeing substance abuse. It also feels like using intimate family relationships against other people. Um, and I do think that she's been betrayed as well. So I think it goes two ways, but again, I think that she's very drawn to what's familiar to her, and what's familiar to her is dysfunction.
I would say that. And now I really do think these are real physical issues, which
Yeah.
how can you put it? Like, if you treat people a certain way or act a certain way, no, they're not necessarily going to be there when your world gets smaller and you actually need them. I mean, it doesn't really work both ways.
Yeah. I do think she's in good hands. I do feel like she is going to, her health is going to improve. I also feel like she is seeing doctors for the physical issues. I think those doctors are going to lead her to help for some of the more psychological or emotional issues as well. So I hate to ever say that, spirit or the universe wants bad things to happen to any of us because I don't think it does. But, it's not a scoreboard, it's a public pool, and karma, comes around and goes around. I do think that these things that are happening to her are going to help her grow and get the help that she needs. So I do see improvement long term.
And you see improvement physically too.
I do. I do. Now I think that there's some things that she's always going to be unhappy with, because this does feel like somebody who also struggles with image. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's going to be, it's some, how would I say this? This is somebody that I'm pretty sure I wouldn't like, but I do think that she has the tenacity to kind of work on herself and to improve. So I'm happy for anyone who does that.
Me too. And even if you didn't like her, you'd probably have fun with her if you went out for the night.
Probably. There's a lot of people like that.
There's a lot, yes, there are a lot of people like that, that on the second drink you like them and you're like, we don't need to speak tomorrow morning. Well, thank you so much. Everyone can check you out for a reading. These are some of these things were just so spot on. Very curious to see what happens with this big Bravo announcement and this West Coast person and, the future of New Jersey and if there's new shows coming. But a lot of the things you said about certain people like Jeff and Kyle, and I mean, Jeff and Lisa Vanderpump and Heather and even Brandy were so spot on. So, and again, we don't tell you these things ahead of time. So I have no horse in this
Yes.
race, everybody. But everyone needs to go to Psychic Source and download the app, and they can find you, Psychic Leota, if they want a reading. And 20 minutes, 35 minutes for $20. That's about as good as it gets. So,
All
and
right.
a second reading, by the way, if you already have a first reading, get a second reading for $50. You get $25 free. And if you spend $30, you get 15 free. So and I know people that listen to us that are already gotten their second reading. I was telling them about it and they're like, oh, we've already done that. So there you
That's
go.
awesome.
But
All
I
right.
appreciate you stopping by. Sorry to keep you a little longer, and I can't wait to do this
No,
again.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh my
And
God.